Have you ever had that feeling where you just blink and suddenly a whole decade is just poof, vanished? If you've ever stopped and wondered, wait, where did all that time go? Trust me, you are not alone. So today, let's put on our detective hats and solve the mystery of our speeding lives.
And this isn't just some vague, passing thought. For a lot of us, it's a real, deep-seated fear. A Reddit user, Stup Spider, just hit the nail on the head with this one. It's that gut-wrenching fear that life is just slipping through our fingers, turning into this big, blurry memory of forgotten days. And that feeling? That's the heart of the mystery we're cracking open today.
So why? Why does it feel like time sprouts wings and just flies away the older we get? Well, I'm here to tell you it's not just in your head. It's a nearly universal human experience, and the clues are buried deep in our psychology, our neurology, and yeah, even in the way our modern world is built. Let's start digging.
Okay, our first stop on this investigation is inside our own heads. Turns out, the way our brain records and, more importantly, compresses our memories is probably the single biggest clue as to why the years seem to get shorter and shorter.
This right here, this is the whole case in a nutshell. Think about it. When you're a kid, life is just a fire hose of firsts. The first day of school, learning to ride a bike, your first sleepover. Your brain is frantically taking notes, recording everything in super high definition. But as adults, we get into routines. The same commute, the same lunch, the same chores. Our brain, being super efficient, sees all this repetitive data and basically says, okay, I've seen this before, and hits the fast forward button. That compression is what makes an entire year feel like it just vanished.
So the secret weapon, the key ingredient to slowing things down, is this word right here, novelty. New, unfamiliar experiences force your brain to get off autopilot and actually pay attention to encode way more detail. It's like you're creating these rich, detailed bookmarks for those moments in your life. The more unique bookmarks you have, the thicker the book of your life feels when you look back. Routine, on the other hand, that's like reading the same page over and over. Your brain just stops bothering to bookmark it at all.
But it's not just about memories. There are a couple of other forces at play. First, there's the simple, kind of brutal math of the proportional theory. When you're 10, a year is a whole 10% of your entire life. That's huge. But when you're 50, it's just 2%. Then you've got a very modern culprit, social acceleration. Thanks to technology, we have to run faster and faster just to stay in place. One sociologist calls this a frenetic standstill. You know that feeling? You're on a hamster wheel, constantly busy, but you never actually feel like you're getting anywhere. That state completely messes with our sense of time. Okay, now we're going to go a layer deeper. Our next clue takes us from the psychology of memory into the hard science of our brain's internal chemical clock. This is where things get really interesting. We've all said it, right? We've all lived it. A great afternoon with friends just evaporates in what feels like 5 minutes. But what is actually going on in your brain? Well, the answer comes down to a very famous little molecule you've definitely heard of.
So to figure this out, scientists ran this really clever experiment. They basically taught mice to be little time judges. And while the mice were doing this, the researchers were watching their dopamine neurons. The results were crystal clear. Whenever dopamine activity spiked, the mice consistently thought less time had passed than it actually had. They even got to the point where they could use lasers to turn these neurons on and off, literally giving them a remote control for how the mice perceive time. Wild, right?
Now here is the twist. This is the part that's totally counterintuitive. You'd think that dopamine, the chemical of excitement and fun, would make our internal clock tick faster, wouldn't you? That's what the scientists thought too. But they found the exact opposite. When dopamine floods your brain, your internal clock actually ticks slower. And because it's ticking slower, you look at the real clock and think, whoa, where did the time go? It's why time flies when you're having fun.
So, why would our brains be wired this way? Well, the lead researcher, Joseph Payton, explains it's basically an evolutionary life hack. Dopamine is your brain's signal for an unexpected reward. So, by making time feel shorter during a fun, rewarding activity, your brain is essentially tricking you. It's encouraging you to stick with that good, helpful thing for longer. It's your brain's little nudge saying, hey, this is awesome for you. Keep going. Okay, so the case is cracked. We've identified the culprits: routine, memory compression, and a sneaky dopamine system that makes the good times fly by. But here's the good news. We are not helpless victims here. Now that we know what's going on, we can actually do something about it. We can fight back.
So here it is, your 4-part toolkit for taking back your time. First, and most importantly, inject novelty. Even tiny changes create those mental bookmarks we talked about. Second, practice mindfulness. When you are truly, fully present, your brain is processing more, which literally stretches the moment. Third, consciously, deliberately break your routine.
Anything that yanks you out of autopilot is going to help. And finally, and this one's tough for a lot of us, embrace slowness. Unplug. Our constant scrolling creates a time void. Allowing yourself to be bored forces you to engage with the world at a slower, richer, and way more memorable pace.
And hey, this isn't just some abstract theory. People are actually doing this. As Redditor Epicause says, you can't just trick your brain by watching a new show on Netflix. It's too smart for that. You need authentic, real-world novelty to build those rich memories that make time feel substantial. You need the real deal.
You know, what this really boils down to is the difference between passive consumption and active creation. When you're mindlessly scrolling or binge-watching a show, yeah, you're filling time, but you're not really creating any new, durable memories. But when you actively learn a skill or get lost in a hobby or have a really deep conversation, now you're building the very memories that make life feel full and expansive. You're creating, not just consuming.
And all of this, it brings us to our final piece of the puzzle. And it's less of a clue and more of a choice. A fundamental choice about how we want to relate to time itself. So, over 100 years ago, there was this famous debate between Albert Einstein and a philosopher named Henri Bergson. Einstein talked about clock time, the objective, mathematical, physical thing. It's measured by clocks, and it just ticks along. But Bergson argued that we should focus on lived time, our subjective, emotional, and totally fluid experience of time. You know, the time that stretches out when you're scared and shrinks to nothing when you're in love.
And here's the crucial thing. They're both real. Physics can measure time with incredible precision, sure, but it's our consciousness, our lived time, that gives our lives any richness and meaning. We all have to live in a world that's governed by the clock, but we experience a life that is defined entirely by our perception.
So, no, we can't stop the clock, but we absolutely can change how we experience it. We can choose novelty over routine, presence over distraction, creation over consumption. The goal isn't to somehow trap time in a net. It's to live a life so full of these rich, vivid, bookmarked moments that you never have to wake up at 50 and wonder where it all went. Because you'll know, you really, truly lived it.